Welcome everyone to another IT news stream. So many security vulnerabilities and bugs that it deserves a news trailer. Starting here directly with Intel's latest, or nearly latest, 2019 Intel SGX Secure Enclave Vulnerability and Intel Graphics Update Advisory here from firmware, software, medium, whatever. Original release here, American dates, whatever, either maybe November or probably so November 12th. So nearly a month old, not much talked about. I think probably we have not mentioned that before. Potential security vulnerability in Intel's Software Guard Extension SGX enables processors with IntelÂ Processor Graphics, mail information disclosure. Intel's releasing software firmware updates to mitigate this potential vulnerability. Although to me it's not entirely clear if the firmware update helps by itself. I think not, because they write here, so insufficient access control in protected memory subsystem for Intel SGX 6, 7, 8, 9th generation Intel Core processor family, Xeon and all the fine stuff here, base core 6 medium. And so the actual issue here apparently is, and I'm not really sure if that is fixed with the update here, that apparently here every first 8 or so bytes are accessible from the integrated CPU, which is certainly hilarious. So you would use this to do secured and guarded execution of secure code like encryption or all the other digital rights management stuff. And apparently here, so application providers organize the code data within an enclave memory to avoid putting sensitive material in dword 0 and dword 1. So that most likely means first 8 byte, I guess. Also this word and stuff, also word 3264. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but Intel in 2019 offer cache line. And cache line, we of course, for the recurring subscribers here of all the previous news already, Intel had the same issue with the conditional jump instruction. Also a super hilarious bug that certainly deserves appropriate facepalm. That conditional jump instructions on, or jumping to, probably anyway, on such a cache line boundary would potentially trigger unexpected behavior, undefined behavior. Anyway, so apparently not really sure what's going on there with Intel, if this is some performance optimization gone wrong, or if they just can't do cache alignments right, always off by 1. Apparently Intel's not Intel inside, but Intel off by 1. It's, yeah, anyway. Speaking about stuff on Twitter, I accidentally saw here someone that was like, post your favorite exploit or something, and someone posted what I found really hilarious here on Windows. This apparently reported over a year ago or something. I think he said he reported it, and Microsoft responded, won't fix. So is it here? Maybe not mentioned here, but so the code is super simple. Apparently, if this is true, according to Twitter anyway, some hearsay, you open some test file, you write 1 byte here, write 11A, and then you read. So apparently, so this of course should not necessarily be successful, especially if the file didn't exist, obviously. And it's most impressive exploit here. And so reading here this buffer of 8K should of course not succeed, especially if the file is freshly created and didn't exist before. And according to this tweet and stuff, it's reading here some fine random stuff from your heap. Apparently, he said debugging this CRT libraries, this runtime libraries on Windows, that writing a buffer validates the whole buffer, even though, so this is some uninitialized code leaking from somewhere, could potentially be used to read some bytes that you should not be able to read. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me, such kind of vices won't fix. So apparently, according to Twitter, Microsoft responded with won't fix. Often I know from people working more with Microsoft, I even know some people working at Microsoft. Usually this is, yeah, if like, first of all, not high score internal rating, like important score, and second of all, it might break some existing applications, you never know. Maybe even the evaluated and it breaks some good old-fashioned Visual Basic code. Also not C related, right? So you can probably use this from any scripting language, Python, Lua, you name it. In similar malware stuff, new, still on, I should Google Emotet or Emotet, I have no idea how this should be pronounced. Anyway, German, but I translate. New variant here results in new infection wave. Apparently they changed here this deployment not by email, but like not having this directly in the email, but linked to some websites so that it goes through antivirus, because snake oil, there we have it again, and getting people to some website where they are then infected. And apparently, yeah, so new tricks there, new phishing and stuff. And yeah, this is also why with the not only antivirus, why I usually increase the attack surface and doesn't help much. Again, for new viruses, for variants, it doesn't help a thing. And usually the code is not higher quality than operating systems. And we had so many cases over the last decades where there were bugs, off by ones, buffer overruns, underruns, uninitialized, everything, and or privilege escalation and all this kind of stuff. So that usually antivirus on Windows and such usually only increases the attack surface. So on the other news of ransomware and cities paying and police next block, police, courthouse, hospital shut down because Windows monoculture and not the most secure code. Even here this third Bund warns, beware, Emotet, currently one of the most dangerous botnets in operation. Third Bund once again became aware of several high profile victims. Don't be the next year. Maybe also conclusion, don't use Windows, and certainly even not all Linux, because if everything would be Linux, the situation might not be the most better, but also use different operating systems like OpenBSD there, Linux there, you name it. In similar news, Intel acquires Habana Labs for 2 billion. Apparently some AI startup I never heard about. So all the Intel stuff, we had it recurrently, jump condition, security vulnerabilities, and lithography processes delayed, but at least they can still buy the next great startups. So second attempt believed highly optimized Nirvana software stack. However, it's likely to be retooled to work with Habana architecture. So what is it and why should Intel pay 2 billion? Among the sources of startups readying hardware for AI, Habana Labs stands out as one of the first to deliver working hardware with impressive performance claims for both training and inference processing. Launched a Goya chip for inference processing September 2018, claiming roughly 3 times performance advantage over NVIDIA. Also, all those videos here, hardware, low-level stuff, FPGA, if you want in the innovation is not dead, and certainly fun times to do new things. Welcome everyone. AI is what gets comments in the audience. Foxlet writes, AI is what gets shareholders excited. Yeah, certainly after the Bitcoin and blockchain stuff, AI is a new buzzword. 9to5 Google writes here, some Android apps suffer data loss after latest Chrome update. Update fixes apparently rolling out. This is interesting in multiple ways, not only in major vendors, like not some small company startup, but major companies like Google with their massive ecosystem of the largest mobile platform, certainly, I would think, user-wise and application-wise, far ahead of the App Store, I guess. And so even Google of all the web companies, so even the biggest web companies can't even test and publish, or develop, test and publish web frameworks like the core of web, HTML, WebView here, without breaking third parties so much to testing, and more testing, and yeah, writing some systematic code to start with. And also a warning that with all the app and web craziness, we had this before in the last months, where Chrome updates took whole data or whole call centers down because their help desk stuff didn't work again with syn client there. And yeah, so single point of failure, not only on Windows, a new single point of failure, Google and web technology. And this happens, of course, when we rely on just one source of one HTML web processing source, also for all the apps, right? Many apps, what many don't realize, many apps for your car sharing, your music application, music streaming, your video streaming, many of them are just web views with some custom server client-side code. And if something breaks system-wide, like updates, so breaking all the apps, right? Streaming might not work, also apparently losing data, app cache, file system, local storage, IndexedDB, service worker, web SQL. For me, it's always surprising how this made it through testing when I see how many, what kind of stuff we get in our small company. Usually 90% of our support is dealing with other, like Apple breaking stuff in macOS. And not only UI, but also USB and threading and so on. Apparently here update already rolling out, well, already, but Google now has a fix for the WebView bug according to the company today. All data from Chrome 78 and earlier disappeared with Chrome 79 will made visible in apps again. And this is the same for this Electron-based apps that personally I don't like very much, especially because they are large and then you have multiple browsers. I tested some music streaming the other week, and of course it's downloading some 80 megabyte of Electron web application. And I'm surprised, like every other second, third day I get an update. I'm not sure if just now like everything is broken, and this one single music, each time I launch it, every second day it tells me there's an update. Do you want to load and restart? Like, what the heck, I just did this yesterday. But maybe it's related because Electron, of course, Chromium based, but yeah, 2019 everything web based. More comments there from Foglets. Let me just pop up chat for better readability on this high DPI display. Foglet is surprised that Chrome binary handles WebView given not even phone ship with it. What? Surprised Chrome binary handles. Surprised the Chrome binary handles WebView given not every phone ships with it. You mean not having the Play Store? Maybe. But yeah, also in general, with Electron, I would prefer much more the streaming app could be like 10 or 20 megabyte instead it's 80 or something. And in general, I don't approve. It's of course a huge code base to trust, and it makes totally no sense. Probably we should make a dedicated live stream about technology and software development. Because for this music streaming app, like Tidal or so, you don't even have a Linux client. So in my opinion, a totally wrong development. And with all this development, we don't even get a Linux build from, for example, Tidal, but not a paid advertisement. And if we already have web apps, again, that are usually like perform less amazing, usually native applications usually should perform way better performance in terms of speed and snappiness and better battery life because burning less CPU for all the web browser overhead. And then at least I would like a native application for that part of Java like decades ago. That promise was at least somewhat larger. And then, in my opinion, it would be much more amazing if these apps would ship without Electron. If this would be like a web archive download and would run in any like supported and compatible browser, at least then with like Tidal or others, at least we could use it with Linux using Chrome, because the vendors, you could say maybe peel out all the HTML stuff out of the Electron app But if the vendor added some custom API for DRM, of course, it anyway doesn't work, but maybe that's something, but maybe I should make a dedicated episode of app deployment, web stuff and whatnot. In similar news, binary planting with NPM CLI, we had this before already, I think even in NPM and other of these repositories, and also our own love and hate relationship with Rust Cargo, another of those central repositories. And again, update as soon as possible. Vulnerability allows arbitrary path access. Version prior to 6.13.3, properly constructed a properly constructed entry in the package JSON bin field could allow a package publisher to modify and or gain access or to arbitrary files on the user system where the package is installed. Seriously, what is wrong with software in 2019? So yeah, there you have it. And apparently maybe there were even two, usually there are then one or two exploiting this. So yeah, Foglets right, as in WebView framework inside the Play Store app rather than the core OS. Yeah, I've seen this, so I guess I parsed and understood what you meant. I've seen this, not sure, but even in, so I've seen this updating for me here on this Samsung Galaxy something S10e. And of course it's a good thing that they update this, it's just not a good thing that they don't test it enough. Not really sure, but maybe the other vendor, if Huawei ships this without the Play Store, maybe they have then the core services certainly distributed through their Huawei gallery, whatever, something, app gallery or what it named. In similar news, Wise took a look on Ring. Maybe not the best source, but whatever. Also, not the best article, which by the way, I apparently stream the right window. Not the best article, but nonetheless, I wanted to anyway include because they did not take a look on the software, so that is not mostly about software security, but already on for normal journalists taking a look already lacks basic security features, making it easy for hackers to turn the company cameras against the customers. So some of this is, of course, you would need additionally hijack man in the middle or gain access with social engineering to the emails, for example, for email authentication. However, once you get access, for example, there is not even an LED displaying that someone is watching you right now, apparently, as far as I understood the summary. And also additionally, you have no management of seeing who right now is accessing your Ring camera, which is also basic stuff. So not agreeing 100% with the article, but certainly the right direction of reporting. And let's see, colleagues were the only ones accessing the camera because they had the relevant email address and password, but Amazon-owned security camera Ring did not doing enough to stop hackers breaking. What do they write here? Last week, media reports found that hackers harassed people through Ring devices. In one case, a hacker taunted a child in Mississippi. In another, someone hurled racist insults at a Florida family. So this is apparently a thing, so unrelated of this article, maybe not the best research, but nonetheless, apparently this is a real thing. As you see, also most users' passwords not the most secure and easily phished, as we see with Emotet, malware and such. Hackers apparently made dedicated software for more swiftly gaining access to Ring cameras by churning through previous compromised email addresses and passwords, and then that some hackers were live streaming the Ring abuse on their own so-called podcast dubbed Nullcast. And yeah, recurring reminder why I do this channel, and we certainly, there you see I set this Ring camera, I think I probably mentioned this a month ago. I already said it's probably not the best idea, and a couple of months later, of course, hackers already phishing it. Foglet writes, comments there in the audience, Achilles heel for those cameras is weak password from users and social engineering. Yeah, totally. This is why I said this article, this is why I said the article, not even the best technical analysis of what is security, like breaking the crypto or something extremely high level, but even then, even for normal reporters to look on a high level, especially as it's already used in the field, not the best security track record here. And yeah, certainly there you see even big companies like Amazon are not doing as much as they should. And I think they said here that in the app you don't see who is logged in. In my opinion, also a minimum that you should have some track record of that you see right now 2 people in the management app, in the accompanying app for that. In similar news, Google reportedly set a goal of being the top 2 cloud players by 2023. And what is I find more interesting in this article is so that they even considered abandoning the cloud market. And there you see we had this live stream 6 months ago or so, or a year ago, the 150, I think, or a lot, I think it was like 150 projects at the Google Projects Graveyard. And that so cloud computing could very well maybe become the next graveyard project there from Google. And they also see when you base your business on other people's cloud, it could go away, right? Even if you think Google will not go away. Even Google, allegedly, according to this article, executives, including then CEO Larry Page, CFO Ruth Porat, and then Google CEO Sunday Pichai, so talked about whether the company should exit the public cloud market where it's behind Amazon and Microsoft, according to a new report. And apparently the conclusion is they want to push it even harder to become number 1 or 2 by 2023. But Google claims the support is not accurate as usual, not accurate, but whatever. And according to this, they still say they could still leave this, I think, if not successful. Was it, I think it was mentioned here that in early 2018, I think it was like, okay, in the meantime it was updated. It reflects that Tuesday afternoon Google spokesperson said not accurate, denied the company's debating. I mean, of course, if you want to become top 1 or 2 player, you can't have this rumors, but he was mentioned earlier, if it's not yet up, if it's removed earlier, it mentioned they could still leave it if it's not successful enough. So just a little bit of warning, like cloud server is not your server and probably would run it differently and not on this kind of cloud app stuff, especially from. Also, I don't understand why we only need big companies. Like, imagine the world where going back to mainframes and everything done by IBM or so. And in general, with all this fail, I find it much more stable and reliable and much better for the economy, also for your local economy, if we have hundreds of services and not only Google and Amazon. In similar news, Catalina 10.15.2 has changed gatekeepers dialog to confuse notarization status. Of course, a topic that is to my heart here with still shipping Mac applications. And I personally really hate this dialog. So they previously said, as you can see here, also here can't be opened because Apple cannot check for malicious software. And I also saw, so I even, this Xcode is of course not bug free, right? It happened to me multiple times the last month that we test, and then we build the final package, and then somehow, like 2 or 3 times, Xcode did not re-sign it for some reason, and then sometimes there was like one text file updated in the application bundle and Xcode did not re-sign it. So because after testing, we like packaged it together and securely copied it to the servers of ours. And then because when we test and double test and then pack it and send it, we did not expect that this code signing did not code sign, right? So we did not test again the final bundle. So it happened like 2 or 3 times last month that we deployed a disk image, for example, for download, this compressed disk image, without proper code signature, where it was from the last build and not updated. And this is really annoying that Apple macOS then shows this is damaged. So they do not show this is not proper, this is not code signed, or the code signature is invalid. It just says it's damaged and should be moved to trash, which I find really stupid also. But Apple also got rid here of the sentence. Apparently somewhere here it said could not scan for malware, maybe this one here, Apple checked it for, yeah, so further checking, previously 10.14.6 fully patched says Apple checked it for malicious software and none was detected. And this is of course interesting, right? I call this security theater and snake oil as per usual. I always said this is bullshit. I mean, of course they barely scan, there's something I would be really surprised. And again, a virus written today is of course not detected by Apple. This is mostly to keep developers in check and be able to revoke their code signing if they don't like something, and also make sure that they use Xcode and so on, the latest compiler and stuff, so that this is also hilarious, right? In a year or two, we as a company, we could no longer, if we wanted to support this version, at some point Apple will force us to use a new version of everything and not make even us as developer the possibility to still ship code to previous customers. So in my opinion, everything really shady business here. And he also speculates that, so this is of course Apple, maybe some lawyer or manager there at Apple thought it's not the best idea to say, hey, we checked this and this is harmless, opening potential for lawsuit and stuff. And removing the sentence, of course, means that Apple cannot guarantee you that even if they scan something, of course they can guarantee nothing, right? Certainly matches here that they removed this message. And yeah, in case you had needed more indications that the stuff is not amazing. Speaking about similar and not amazing stuff at Apple, Apple's new screen time communication limits are easily beaten with a bug. This is also, yeah, no surprise there. And in this news, of course, we had this before, and what this means is that kids nowadays are smarter than the developers at Apple. I was already joking and should joke again. Maybe Apple should employ some kids to do some quality testing. Apple acknowledges the bug affects iPhones with non-standard configuration. Yeah, everything you are holding it wrong, you configured it non-standard. Bug in 13.3 allows children to easily circumvent the restrictions their parents, guardians set with communication limits feature and screen time. Apple said they plan a fix to the problem. Also, yes, this is not the first time. If this would be the first time, okay, but this is since years, right? Since years ongoing that the biggest Silicon Valley companies can't implement proper parental controls in 2019. In similar news, just a little funny thing, le Mac Pro est arrivé de Chine chez un client François, I think, plus minus some pronunciation. Feel free to correct my French pronunciation. According to some French articles, so all the fuss about Apple still manufacturing the Mac Pro in America is probably for next to nothing. There's only some fake factory manufacturing a small limited quantity for the US domestic market. Most likely most of the international Macs, this overpriced cheese grater stuff that is less in the base configuration for 6,000 euro, less powerful than our Ryzen build. You will see here made in China, designed by Apple in California, assembled in China. So yeah, there you have it. Amazing manufacturing in the USA, not some little bit fake stuff to make Trump and some American customers happy. In similar news, in the App Store, Apple App Store business, fake princesses pull teeth and a whole lot of IP infringement. Apple says it goes out of its way to protect the safety and security of young users. The App Store of 2019 tells a different story. Recurring shout out that we are not the only one that, again, our app they don't allow, but all the copies and crap app. Well, when I already see such app, I can already throw up, to be honest. But yeah, Apple, one of the most valuable businesses in the world, has always positioned itself as a wholesome tech company, benevolent gatekeeper concerned with your safety, and make more than a lot and so on, whatever. But the App Store guidelines, where is it, connecting them, Facebook, Instagram, something, function as they should either, being a gatekeeper. So there you have it. And also I would rather prefer that Apple is not censoring what we can bring to the customer. Remember, the recurring subscribers might know that we cannot ship our Pro applications because we're not showing a save as dialog for each file saved. But all the copycats and crap apps, and as long as they show a save as dialog, or probably none because it's a stupid game. But yeah, we might not love everything that the company like Johnson & Johnson, Fisher Price or Disney does, and we may not love all the products, but there's a baseline exception that turn on the Disney Channel, you know what you're going to get. And apparently they write here there's a lot of copycat stuff. Where is it? Gibbs reputation, yada yada. They could also faster come to the point here. While browsing Apple's App Store for games for their nearly 6-year-old daughter, it searched the trusted names, show movies. She loves some Vampirina, Sophia or something, whatever. And apparently there's a lot of fake stuff and so on. Keep in mind, it was looking for fakes, fully expected to find only official apps. For the company's characters, did not expect to find Paw, Puppy, Smashy, Patrol in the store above official Nickelodeon app for Raw Patrol, something. But the case in point, and this is just underlying the point I always make, this App Store helps nothing. It's punishing the wrong people. It's punishing pro developers like us who cannot get their pro apps of what they know, what they are doing, and instead it's full with garbage and copies and stuff. But yeah, in similar, I think I had another news though. I slightly wonder where did I have the feeling I missed some news. There was some app. Anyway, there was some music app pulled, App Store music I pulled. Maybe I didn't click on all the links. So there, Apple pulled an app that lets you turn your phone into a virtual iPod, and the same thing. And even you could say, yeah, but copycat stuff. So you see, the store is full with Disney copies and whatnot. Not that I would care, but I mostly care about garbage content. But this app, you could argue, yes, it copies the style of the iPod. However, it didn't do directly. You still had to download it. It was just some, as far as I understood, it was some third-party theme, and that you probably could download from the internet or something. And there you see 2019 apps are pulled for downloadable theme content from the internet just because some fan made an iPod artwork. It's hilarious, and people loved it. They also see people loved it. It was even if, and there you see people also, if they love something, they even download some third-party fan download stuff, and in 2019 can't even publish in app stores what you want without, and not even over our save as dialog, even for some third-party download makes it look like an iPod. Like, anyway, welcome Christian. Intel's getting their butt served lately. Almost worried about them. Really need to competitor as consumers here. I mean, they are not going away. They have so much cash in their bank account. They will survive this. Also, I mean, they have billions to buy AI startups, so they probably survive that. In similar news, German BSI withholds Truecrypt security report. Just some more government education. Doesn't always need to be the US one. Even the German, a decade ago, they financed a study in 2010 here for Truecrypt. Personally never used it, but Windows user apparently, allegedly, maybe used it, and turned out not the most bug-free and little shady code, maybe allegedly. And there you see secret services, also like the NSA. So there you see they have, of course, 100,000 times more of such studies. And so they made a study, found some issues. They have neither contacted the vendor nor have they published this and warned the users. And really shabby business, in my opinion, of not only US, UK, but also the German government. And what I really hate here, similar to the US, UK, so you don't need to think that stuff is so much more amazing. Somewhere this is why everywhere we need to speak up to improve stuff, that even if for Information Freedom Act in Germany, they request information, they get some studies, they get some information, and then they for years, so some people got to hear this, they requested this in Freedom of Information Act, but then according to this news, if you want to read it, the summary is, initially those people requesting this in Freedom of Information Act, they didn't even get the whole story, right? The whole set of documents. So they got like 6 out of 8 documents, and then they only noticed like, why does this start with numbering part 2? So then they requested, hey, hello, can you also give us part 1? And then initially the BSI even said, yeah, no, part 1 does not. Part 1 is just some overview, something, blah, blah, blah. Eventually they got it, and of course it was not just an overview of the contracting business. And then later they found like part 8 or something, and then they had to contact them again, said, hey, hello, now in the meantime we figured there's also part 8 mentioned, maybe we can also get part 8. And then they forbid disclosure, like you are not allowed to publish this and share it with others, your friends and neighbors and family, because copyright. And this is really dangerous. So there you have it, not only the USA, UK, Germany, governments spending our taxpayers' money for studies, not publishing this, finding security vulnerabilities, and then even if you hearsay, like there was something you Freedom of Information Act requested, even then you get it partially or eventually more, even then they say, yeah, but you can't share it, it's a copyright, like seriously, what the heck? The public has already paid for this, right? And it's security, right? It's not like state secrets of nuclear weapons, it's like, hey, our everyday PC security. Really sad story. Similar interesting news here, some Prusa dares you to break their latest printer. This is really interesting. This is noteworthy here to point out a really interesting thing, that to load custom firmware you need to break part of the PCB. That is really interesting. So what they have done here is, I've not really seen that before. Maybe if you have seen something like that, of course there were if uses, like if you load custom firmware, then some if use is set, but that is of course a really interesting way here to mark this board as you have tinkered, as in you loaded your own firmware with it. This PCB traces going through here keep some pin pulled to ground or so, I think ground or VCC. And resistor, let's check this. And of course you could argue a little bit tamper proof in that your resistor pulls the header and boot 0 pin to avoid, that should, so yeah, 3 volt if you move the jumper over or something. Anyway, and so I think they mentioned that, many comments, I think they mentioned you could circumvent this by scraping, right? Scraping off the top coating and in a very, very micro sub-millimeter fraction and cut it. But it's of course clever done. I think they wrote here that it's a layer in internal layer. So it's like if you have 4 or so PCB traces, to do this on the internal traces, obviously for not direct contact there. Really interesting stuff, to be honest, as you can see here. And yeah, just wanted to, in my opinion, as much, especially as I say that I would want to run my own Linux after iPhone is out of software support. iPhone, iPad or other smartphones, in my opinion, I recurrently repeat it here, everything should be able to be loaded with our own software, similar to Windows, Linux on all PCs and stuff. If this becomes a new personal computer, they certainly should be able to load your custom firmware. Last but not least, we have here a not as amazing outlook to the future. Self-driving Mercedes will be programmed to sacrifice pedestrians to save the driver. In my opinion, this is totally disgusting. A brave new world that is coming. And there, of course, was this long-standing dilemma of how to program a car if the self-driving car detects like multiple people who to potentially kill. I would always argue to always try to harm the least, and this here is completely disgusting in my opinion, and I hope this is challenged in court and changed, and a huge shout out, because this is hilarious, right? The driver is sitting in like a tank-like structure that is hard to damage with airbags and stuff. So you're driving a remote or locally controlled like tank that can kill people, and the self-driving car will drive over pedestrians to save the driver? Like, seriously, this is completely unacceptable. It's disgusting. I have no idea how people can come to this conclusion. I would always argue, if again hurts the least people especially, so I mean it's already the car's fault, right? Under all circumstances, a human driver also always needs to drive so that he can brake in case something happens. You cannot drive faster than how distant you can see. And if the self-driving car didn't see something because garbage programming, garbage cameras, dirty cameras, a faulty camera, or just faulty AI, or AI was not trained for the situation, it cannot sacrifice other outstanding people. And again, the driver is sitting in the most secure airbagged location, so I would argue the car, not only should the self-driving car always certainly minimize damages and take the path of hurting the least people if it's inevitable, but certainly not sacrifice pedestrians over the driver, which is in a much more secured cage with airbags and stuff. And so, in my opinion, the car should rather drive into a wall, which the driver certainly will survive anyway, especially if it's less than 50 kilometers per hour or something. It's disgusting, and why certainly we need to start this program. Anyway, I hope you learned something. That's it for this live stream. I hope. How long are we streaming? We were streaming, of course, 45 minutes. Trying to keep it brief, but so much stuff happening as usual. If you have anything, any comments, any other news, leave me in the comments below. I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you soon for all the next videos and live streams.